Good morning. First off, thanks for coming from a long way for this convention. We hope to make this session really interesting for you. I'm Klaus, this is Monet, and we're going to introduce Chuck, who's a close partner with Talon Software, who's going to do a customer testimonial case study halfway through our session. What we plan to do today is to show you how Azure File Sync, and Azure Files, I should say, with Sync, can simplify your file share management, how you can leverage snapshots and backup, which is a new capability we're announcing at Ignite this year, how we can use Sync to provide true hybrid storage capabilities with your on-prem storage in Windows servers with Azure Files, and how Sync can also provide the same application experience compatibility that you have today on-prem while still marrying it to the cloud for hybrid storage. Here's some other related sessions that we have. We're in the first line at the very top. The one next that I'll just mention is a Windows Server specific session, which also includes a 20-minute section on Azure Files. So if you want a repeat, or you have a friend you want to send to something that's very similar to this session, we have a 20-minute version of this in the BRK2286. So just taking a moment, Azure is big. We have a lot of platform services. They're all like Lego blocks that people can put together to create their own applications. And those Lego blocks are based upon the infrastructure services that you see below, of which storage is a dependent service. So storage is in every single Azure region because every single PaaS service takes advantage of it. And when we look at Azure storage, I wanted to mention that we are at hyperscale at this point. 30 million transactions per second, probably as we're talking right now, trillions of objects, and it's really designed to be durable, secure, and highly available. And then we're also working on openness as far as extending our support for iOS, Android, Node.js, C++, Python, you name it. We're trying to work on creating that openness. And lastly, and that's what this session is a little bit more about, is hybrid. How do we actually take the great value that we're providing in Azure and create more hybrid workloads? Because that's the reality. There's no reason to move everything to the cloud. There's no reason to keep everything on-prem. You want to put workloads where it makes the most sense on that continuum. So Azure Storage consists of 5 services. The first 2, disks and files, are predominantly designed for IaaS workloads. It's something that you can use from on-prem. It's something you can use in the cloud. And then we have our PaaS services in storage, which are blobs, tables, and queues. And again, it's all built on the same underlying storage platform, and we do that on purpose such that the changes we make, such as encryption-at-rest, will benefit all the different product lines at the same time. And the changes we make for durability or reliability, it also manifests across the board to all the different products that we provide. Azure is in more regions than any other public cloud, which I like. I like the fact that there's West Europe, which is in Amsterdam. I'm originally from Holland. And we have 6 more coming soon. So we continue the spread of putting Azure in every single region that we possibly can. So now, starting to kind of keep double-clicking, looking at the broad spectrum, windowing it down. I'm down to Azure Files now. Azure Files, when we initially launched it, I think over 2 years ago, if I remember correctly, it was designed mostly for lift and shift. If you had an application on-prem that required a file share to operate, to have multiple concurrent, say, VMs or users accessing it, it was designed to provide that same value up in the cloud. And so people could take their application on-prem and move it up in the cloud and still make use of it. It uses a variety of protocols, SMB 2.1, 3.0, as well as REST. We provide support for Windows, Mac, or Mac OS that can mount those file shares and make use of them. And I'll mention that we made some check-ins to both the kernel as well as the Samba open source projects to enable that 3.0 functionality because we wanted to ensure that 3.0 was available because it has better security to do cross-region connectivity. We have encryption-at-rest. Whether you're using SMB or REST, we have encryption over the wire. And then we're going to talk more about Sync. So I always like to start off to say, why file servers? When we first started this journey a couple of years ago, we talked to over 100 customers, and we said, hey, so you're storing everything in the cloud, right? And they said, no, we still have file servers. We said, oh, why are you still using file servers? We thought it was all about OneDrive and Dropbox and Azure Files, everything in the cloud. And they said there's 2 reasons why they still use file servers, and those reasons are growing. In other words, if we look at IDC or Gartner, the storage in file servers continues to grow through time. And the first reason is app compat. File shares provide SMB semantics. They provide ACL support, long path name, extended characters in the path name. There's a lot of additional functionality that you just don't get in a, like, say, a blob store. And so they continue to use file shares for that reason. The second one is performance. There are workloads. A good example is customers who have collab scenarios for CAD/CAM drawings for which the latency is an issue. They really can't have people in a specific site dealing with 100 millisecond latency and getting their job done because they're dealing with large files. It's collaborative. They need fast reaction. So performance, especially related to latency, is a key reason why customers continue to use file servers today. So with that in mind, we then ask them the question, OK, what are the problems that you face with these file servers? If you still are using them, you still want to use them, and the storage is growing, what are the problems that you see such that we can design some products to help you with that? And they said, well, our number one problem is cold data. The storage continues to grow, and we know that a lot of it is cooler data that maybe our users or applications don't need. But every single time we touch it and try to remove it or move it to another server, something breaks. We always get the help desk call. We always get the complaint because some workload failed. So it kind of scares us. So we have this problem with cold data. And related to that is capacity management. Do they over-provision when they first set up the share or the file server? Or do they wait for space to run out and add storage to it, which is also extremely expensive? So capacity management is related to that cool data problem. The last two are paired in that if they have discrete little file servers spread out over their organization, how do they back up every one of those file servers? How do they test those backups? How do they do a restore? Is the restore from tape, where they have to lug it in and go out to a branch site in a little pickup truck to do that restoration, because that takes time and money? So those were all related. And then when we talked to them, the customers for which they had multiple sites, especially like a branch office deployment, they're the ones who basically said this is a big issue, because it became a multiplier effect. If they had 100 sites, it was 100 times that problem. Right? The customers we talked to who just had, say, a headquarters or a single data center, they had that problem, but it wasn't as big. But the customers that had lots of different sites had that problem in spades. So what we came up with is Azure File Sync, or Sync, to centralize a company's file services up into Azure. Basically provide cloud value with it in a managed cloud service, so you're not dealing with managing the hardware or the service itself. And it was really designed to reduce the complexity and the cost of having all these discrete file servers that you would have to manage separately. That's the design. But we also wanted to make sure that it preserves your on-prem experience. So if you have applications or users using these file servers, we don't want to change that. We want to make sure that those people can still work just like they are. So we wanted to preserve that on-prem, which is how we came up with the hybrid story. So this is kind of a diagram, a conceptual diagram to show you what Azure File Sync will do. Let's say we have a branch office server, and it's got a bunch of files on it, and it grew through time. And it got to the point where free space was 0%. It ran out of space. With Azure File Sync, we would hook it up to what we call a sync group, which is a replication unit. Everything within a sync group is kept consistent. And initially, the files are copied to Azure Files. And then we would remove the least recently used contents from that file server. So the older files would be removed to get that file server back into a free space situation. So the namespace is still there, but the contents are not there. And if a user or application tries to access it, it's recalled quickly onto that file server, ergo the hybrid nature of the scenario. Now let's say that branch server goes away for whatever reason. Hard drive crash, doesn't matter. A restoration with Azure File Sync is different in that you stand up a new server, could have the same name or a different name, doesn't matter. You join it to that same sync group, and it rapidly pulls down the namespace. So that comes down very, very quickly. And then through time, we will fill in the cache or the contents. If an application or user tries to access one of those namespace objects, it will also pull it down, and it's seamless. We're implemented with a filter driver that sits on the file server and a reparse point. So everything looks complete, but when you click on it, if it's not there, our filter driver catches it and does that fast recall from the cloud. The second scenario, so that was the first scenario, we call it cloud tiering. The second scenario is now that we have that copy in Azure Files, you can link up many Windows servers to that sync group And we will replicate that data across those servers. And it's true multi-master synchronization, which means that the files can change on any one of those nodes. It's not a tiering solution where we just tier from the file server to the cloud and that's it. We are synchronizing across all these nodes, so they're kept in sync. Now, in our public preview, we don't have this capability, but we are pretty close, so we will add this soon. And this is what we call cloud-to-cloud sync, where you can also add additional Azure file shares in different regions as additional nodes to the sync topology. So at that point, you now have a regional copy of the data in another region. So now you're regionally protected from failover. And then, of course, you can stand up more file servers on that second or third or fourth region as well. So now you have the flexibility of designing your sync topology however you want. If you have a site in Europe and you have sites in America, you can put one of the regions in Europe, and you can hang servers off that if that makes sense based upon your network topology. Or you can have those servers syncing directly from the US region. It's really up to you. Now, once we enable this cloud-to-cloud sync, we also have automatic failover if we do have a regional outage. In this example, if West Europe were unreachable for whatever reason, the branch office in Europe would automatically fail over to the US region. So, and that's one reason why we are pushing hard to get this feature out as fast as we can. And again, we want to support the existing compat that you have today. If customers are using SMB or NFS to access those file servers, that will still work as is. We don't change that behavior at all. If you're using work folders, which is, if you're not, who here is aware of work folders? Not that many, OK. So if you're using work folders, and work folders is a way of accessing a file server over HTTPS from iOS, Android, or Windows. So it basically gives you modern device access to an on-premise file server. If you're using that, that will continue to work with Azure File Sync as well. And then last, we have direct cloud access to the data. If you want to access the Azure file shares directly, which you can do over SMB or REST, you can also do that with our scenario. And this is something that popped as we were going through our private preview. We are now public, and we just launched our public preview. But during the private preview, the customers we had on board, a good example is one of them came up and said, the problem they had is that they were doing a bunch of testing on site, and they wanted to move the testing to Azure. But they weren't that familiar with Azure, a little risk averse. And so what they wanted to do is move one test at a time up from on-prem to the cloud. And so they heard of us and got hooked up with our private preview. And they liked it because what they wanted to do is move one test at a time to Azure, have that put the output to a file share, have that sync on-prem. Their existing developers would continue to work as is. Like the log files that they're pulling from these test runs, it has the same UNC path, the same ACLs, everything is persisted. But they can start moving test after test from on-prem to Azure. And then it's up to them if at some point they want to have it fully in Azure, or retreat back to on-prem, or keep a hybrid workload going. So that's a key case that we didn't realize when we set off on this journey, which is kind of the through-time lift and shift, or hybrid workload. And last but not least, we do integrate with Azure Backup, and Monet will actually talk a little bit more about how that looks. So let me do my first demo, which is how you set up Azure Files. OK, so I've already logged on to the Azure portal. And I'm going to type in Azure File Sync. It's the easiest way to find us in the marketplace. And I'll pull it up. And right there, we have a description of what Azure File Sync does. And we also have a diagram that we list in that blade on the right, which shows you a little bit of how that would look. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Create. Now, at this point, I need to put in a name and a subscription and a resource group, which in this case happens to be in West US. In our preview, we're supported in West US, West Europe, Southeast Asia, and East Australia. And we're going to continue to add more regions as we go through our public preview. So now I'll go ahead and hit Create. And there, we just completed. And so now I'll go to that sync service that I just created, which is our parent object. Actually, I won't go there. Instead, let me go to a server. And on the server, I've downloaded an MSI package, which is available on the Download Center for Microsoft. And the portal gives you the link to that. I've installed it by clicking on it and going through the wizard. And I've also, via PowerShell, done an install module for Azure RM. That's a step that we're going to incorporate into the setup process as we go, but right now it's a separate step. And then in Server Manager, I turned off Enhanced IE mode because it just creates less prompts as I'm going through this demo. And now I'll go ahead and continue with the registration. So during the MSI install, it kicks off this server registration process automatically. So I'm signing into Azure now with my personal account, which I use for demos. And so now that I'm signed in, I can pick one of my subscriptions. And then within that subscription, I will pick a resource group, which I created one called Demo. And then I'll pick that storage sync service I just created, which I also called Demo. You can tell I like the label Demo. Now I'm going to authenticate one more time because this is the part at which the trust relationship is set up between the server and that sync service object. So at this point in time, the server is known to the service. So I'll go back to the portal. And I'll go to that sync service object, which is right there. And so notice right there, the server has been registered. It shows up. And so now I'll go to a sync group. And again, a sync group is a unit of replication. So I have to give it a name. And then I have to find an Azure file share. Now, it turns out I've already created an Azure file share in the storage account demo W. But of course, I called the Azure file share demo. So now I've created, or starting to create, a sync group. And so I'll open that up to look at that sync group. And notice that I already have a provisioned Azure file share, but I don't have any server endpoints. So now I'll go to that server that I pre-registered, which was called demo, and I'm going to put in a path. So I need to know what the sync point is on the server. Like where on the server should I sync from? And so I need to pick, at this point, a non-system root volume and path name. And I had a data drive there called S. And I put a folder in there called Scratch. And I'll explain the cloud tiering on my next demonstration. So now I'll hit Create. And now I've RDP'd to that server to show you the Scratch share. And I'll try to put both up on the screen at the same time while it's provisioning. So now I'm going to the Azure file share that backs up the sync group now. And so the contents have already synchronized. So the provisioning had already finished, and the sync has taken place. And so now the files are going to be bidirectionally synchronized between the Azure file share and the Windows server. And just to show that, I'm going to go ahead and rename or create a new file. And then I'll see if I can get that new file to sync. And so it's synced. I always want to say it's sunk, but that sounds bad. So it's synced. So now I'll go back to the deck. Okay, so I just showed you how easy it is to set up. Now I just wanted to kind of reaffirm the specific scenarios I'll show you and also what we enable with Azure File Sync. The first one is multi-site sync, keeping the same data set in sync across server instances and the cloud. Second one is the cloud tiering, where we can turn an existing Windows file server into a lightweight on-premise cache for Azure Files. Provides true hybrid capability, and also that local performance and latency. The third one is the direct cloud access. So we want the files, the data to be accessible on-prem and in the cloud equally. There's no difference in the way we allow access. Last is integrated cloud backup, where we integrate with Azure Backup and its snapshot support to provide the ability to back up from Azure as opposed to having to back up each individual file server. And last is, in the case of an emergency where you have to do a restore, it's a rapid restore, where the file server can come back very quickly because we separate out the namespace from the file contents. And now let me show you sync, cloud tiering, multi-site access, and rapid namespace. Okay. So here I have a more complicated topology I had previously set up. I have two sync groups, and I'm going to use sync group number 2. In this case, I have one Azure file share hooked up to it called 2, and then I have two servers, Ignite Server 1 and Ignite Server 2. When I click on them, notice that this one I've enabled cloud tiering, and I've set 95% free space. So 95% free space is not real world at all. I'm just doing it for this demonstration. But that means that the system will try to keep 95% free on that volume should the space get crunched, which means once I get to 6% utilization or capacity used, our tiering engine will kick in and start removing the least recently used contents. Now, through time, we're going to add additional policies that you can enable. Today, this is the policy we support. The first one that we're going to bring out sometime in our public preview or when we get closer to GA is pinning. We've already gotten a lot of requests for that, where people say this directory or this file extension should always stay local, should never be recalled. So we already know we're going to add that, but that's what this policy does today. And now I'll look at server number 2, and so that says 10% free space. So that's a much more real-world example that will actually just shoot for 10%. And so now I'm RDPing into the two servers. And so I put this data set together before because tiering does take a while to quiesce. After the initial sync, it's going to take a little bit of time until the tiering policy kicks in. And so what I wanted to do is let that quiesce. And what I wanted to show you is that on these two servers, on the left-hand server, the O attribute stands for offline. It's built into Windows. It's just the way Windows works to show like a reparse point or the fact that a file is not truly there. So we're not doing anything different than what's built into Windows. And on the left, notice that most of the files are O for offline. So they are not locally present on that server, except for the files at the bottom because we exclude small files unless space gets really crunched, for instance. Now the server on the right, which was the 10% free space, is showing all of them being local, and that's because free space is not a problem there. So the question was, does the icon show as more transparent? And the answer is yes. Windows Explorer today, in both client and server, has standard behavior for offline attribute, and one of them is to make the icon 50% more transparent. And that's a way that you get a visual UI representation of that. If you haven't heard of OneDrive for Business and On Demand, we internally call it Cloud Files, but the real name is On Demand, so I'll start to use that. It's a Windows client feature that works with OneDrive that does very similar things, and they extend the UI even further. But that's correct. Question?
What about concurrent access?
So the question is concurrent access and locking. That's an awesome question. So the first part is that our behavior operates very similar to OneDrive or other collision avoidance systems. And by that I mean, if you have the same file on multiple nodes and you write to that same file approximately in the same time frame, what our system will do is allow both writes to succeed, and the most recently used will keep the file name, the loser write will get appended with the source of that write. So if it happened on server 2, it'll be file name dash server 2, right? Now, the reason that's a good question is because, luckily, we're here with Talon, which has Talon Fast, which does have global file locking. So he'll walk through a partner solution that extends Azure Files in a way that does provide global file locking. Yeah, the question is this the DFSR engine? No, not even close. No, I like DFSR. I came from a team that worked on DFSR. But no, it's not DFSR. Technically, we're pretty sure you could even link DFSR up to Azure File Sync. In other words, you could have one server that is the point and then use DFSR to go past it. We haven't tested that yet, though. Please don't do that until we test it. But we've technically walked through it, and there should be no problem doing that if you so desired. But it's not the DFSR engine. It actually uses the Microsoft Sync framework. You can look that up. It's something that we use for SQL replication and other types of replication inbox, including work folders, for over 5 years. So it's a battle-hardened sync engine. I'll take one more question. Well, a couple more questions. I think we still have time, and then I'll have to pause. Yes?
Where does this fit into the store simple space? So it seems to do similar things, but just without the hardware aspect of it.
It does. So the store simple. So the question is, how does this fit in or relate to store simple? The store simple team is part of Azure Storage. We are working together. Store simple is really a tiering solution with primary storage. You buy an appliance, you put it on-prem, and it has a linkage to blobs to sync. Your native support isn't quite as good because it is to blobs, and it's converting that file store into blobs. And you don't really have concurrent access. It's not bidirectional sync. So let's start with that. So I would say that Store Simple is more around providing that primary storage extension on-prem with a cloud tier to provide more elasticity. Whereas we're a sync engine. So it's quite different. They have a tiering functionality. We're a sync engine. We can sync content, multi-master across different sites. And we're just using that sync engine to also provide tiering. Okay. One last question, then I'll keep going. But we're going to be here for the end, too. The question is this in CSP? As of today, I'm not 100% sure, because I'm actually the one that was going to validate it last week. Honestly, and then I was flying here. And so we just launched our public preview. And one of the validation steps we're going to do is test it out with a CSP account. There's nothing technically to prevent it from being in CSP. We'd already walked through it about 3 months ago. We just need to verify it again. So I'm going to say, yes, it will be in CSP shortly if it is not today. Okay? But there's no expectation that we will not. We want to empower everybody to be able to resell this functionality. Definitely. OK. So this is a video file. I just wanted to note that the amount of storage that's on the disk is less than the logical size. And if I just zoom in here, but if I start that video file, it starts to play, and I can skip randomly through the file. So it works seamlessly. And then when I look at the file again, it's cached more of the information. And really, all I wanted to show here is that if there's an application that does random read and writes in ranges, we respect that. We're not trying to recall the entire file contents, which would be silly. We're recalling the contents that are necessary. If I look at a zip file, for instance, it has 0 bytes on disk, so that's 100% cached. But when I open it, it did a seamless recall. I can open the specific file contents that make up that zip file. And from an end user standpoint, there's just no difference in my behavior, even though that was fully cached or cloud tiered. And now it has fully recalled the file. So one last thing I'll do. Let's see. I'll go ahead and rename this file. Or I'll first show that it's, let's just rename it. So this file also has 0 bytes on the system, I'm pretty darn sure. So I'm going to rename it even though it's in a cloud-tiered state. And now I'm going to look at the second server. And it's s-log-files directory. And it's still there in the unrenamed state. There it went. So there it synced over the changes without having to do a recall on the first server. And I'll add that if you were to change ACLs, we do synchronize the ACLs. So Mene will talk a little bit about AD ACL support in Azure Files, but I just wanted to make sure that it was clear that when you set ACLs on any one of these servers, we do synchronize those changes as well. So we do keep the ACLs in sync. Question? The question is, what happens if you try to open it in a renamed state before it's refreshed? The refresh is just for the Explorer. The only reason I'm doing a refresh is because Explorer sometimes does not keep up. That's the only reason why. And one more question, and I'll keep going. And the question is, what are the limits, file size limits? We do have file size limits, sadly. But we're working on them. So today, I don't off the top of my head remember all the specific limits. We have those published in our release notes. But we do have some limits, such as 5 servers per sync group at this point in time, as well as a maximum file size. Azure Files, the limit there is 1 terabyte for a file. And so we're less than that. I think we're currently sitting at 100 gig for public preview. But don't quote me on that. Take a look at our release notes. But we have all the limits documented there. But we do have some. We do have some. Yeah. Oh, one more question.
On other limits, have you tested upper limits of number of files, like 5 million files?
Yeah, so the question is, how about a limit related to the number of files? We've tested up to, I think it was 30 million. So our number of files doesn't seem to be too constrained. I mean, we do have a limit there as well. But it's not small, and it continues to grow as we get more confidence in the system. Yeah. Thank you. OK. So that went over. So my last demonstration is going to be a rapid restore. Try this. One sec. Oops. That's not the right screen. Here we go. OK, so I set up another sync group in this case called Ignite1. And I have a sync group called Rapid Restore. And I already have a registered server, Ignite Server 2, that I'm using for this one. So I'll go back to Rapid Restore. And notice I already have an Azure File Share defined, which is called 2, but I do not have a server endpoint defined to the sync group yet. So now I'm RDP'd into that server, and I'm showing you that s:\log files is empty at this point. But the contents are sitting on Azure because this sync group was functional before. So I'll go to that registered server, Ignite Server 2, and I'll give a path of s:\log files. And I'll take a second to provision. And I'll take a look at the provisioning status. Still going. There it goes. So it finally completed the provisioning step. And notice that the namespace came in very quickly. The namespace came in. All the files are listed as O because they are truly offline. As I start to access those files, they will start to recall O. I'll do one real quick. So a small file at the bottom has already come down. I can open up this file. It opened up seamlessly, and that will show as cached locally. There you go. I could do the larger files too, but I think I'm running a little short on time. So with that, I'd like to introduce Chuck Foley, who works for Talent Software, a good partner of ours, to talk a little bit more about his solution, a case study with the partner called or customer called TSK, and how you can actually enable global file locking to the previous question.
Hear me all right, right? Good. So I get to tell you how this cool approach actually works in the real world. We have a joint customer we'll use as a data point for you. They're called TSK. TSK, located in the UK, is an international design and consultancy firm. Kind of what they do is they exist to make sure that businesses work best. They design the entire workflow and people flow and resource in a given workplace, be it a knowledge worker workplace or a labor force workplace. You see some of the people that they work with, Capgemini, Kellogg's, Ticketmaster. Really interesting company, and what I like about them is they have a quintessential business strategy that you see today, which is focused on your core competencies. Do what you do best, which generates revenue and business results, and stuff that you don't need to do, offload that to somebody. For them, what that means is offloading their IT infrastructure. They're looking to move to the cloud. They're looking to not have to manage IT resources, and they want to concentrate on design. So there are challenges in doing that. And they're not a Fortune 500 company, by the way, which probably makes the pain point even greater for them. What are kind of their problems? Number one, they had IT infrastructure in multiple locations because they had knowledge bases in multiple locations. Number one, they had costs involved with that. File servers are a great example for the reason that Klaus talked about before, backup and management and capacity management and availability management, DR and audit and governance and compliance, et cetera. Number two, they have a collaborative kind of work process. So if somebody in location A is working on a project and they're doing it in tandem with location B, and they might have 6 months to 1 year projects, there's a concern that this guy's working on a project and this guy over here starts to also work on the project and they step on each other's work. Conflict had been a way of life for them. So they were looking to see, how can I consolidate all of my information in one place? How can I do it in the cloud so that I don't have to manage it? How can I offload dollars that I'm spending on IT infrastructure management and put those dollars towards more talented designers, et cetera, et cetera? They looked at a lot of approaches. They look at replication and sync approaches. They look at multi-site collaboration approaches. They look at CDN. None of that worked for them. So what did they do in order to say, I want to offload my infrastructure and be able to leverage the cloud in a way that actually works? First thing they did is they found a guide for this journey. I highly recommend that. And it's kind of like in the days of Lewis and Clark. If you haven't been to the Wild West, don't necessarily go there on your own. They selected a Microsoft Silver partner called Building Zones, who specializes in migrating infrastructure from on-prem to the cloud. Number two, they wanted a cloud to go to. For all the reasons that Klaus showed you before, with 36 existing locations and 6 more coming, they came to the conclusion that the Azure Cloud and Azure Storage was the most robust, resilient, and available cloud platform for them. Then they had to say, if I have the right cloud provider and somebody to get me there, and I put all my stuff in the cloud, how do I make sure that multiple locations use it with performance as if it was local, and with a workflow as if everybody was in the same office using the same file server, only it's in the cloud? Things like caching, intelligent caching, and global file locking, and that's why they came to Talent. As Klaus noted, we're a Microsoft ISV partner. We layer on top or in front of the Azure storage offerings so that organizations with locations that may be distributed around the country or around the world can consolidate all their file shares into one location in the cloud and use it as if everybody was local. And They provision this through the Azure Marketplace, which I think Microsoft's done a really good job at about taking technology, putting it a point and click so it can be up and running in a matter of minutes. Literally, you can have multiple locations and go to the Azure Marketplace and provision not only Azure file shares, but Talon attached to it and point-to-site or point-to-point VPNs and have that all up and running literally in minutes and start putting your data up there. So what does this look like in real world? This is the before picture of TSK, multiple locations, each with their own storage resources and file shares that they put all that kind of workload into we talked about. Step one, they created Azure file shares, moved all those different file shares into one in Azure Files. They don't have multiple file servers anymore. They only have one, happens to be in the cloud. One point to manage, one point to back up, one point to worry about. Number two, they installed the Talon software in front of that. They installed one instance of it in the cloud mounted to the file shares, and then another instance in every location that will be accessing that. That's the hub and spoke, if you will, access that allows all offices to use the single share as if they were local. So what does it look like in practice when a designer in location A says, I want to start to work on a project? First thing he does is ask to open the file. He's authenticated with Active Directory, and that file in the cloud is opened and locked. This keeps those conflict and race situations from happening. So the file is actually resident in Azure Files, it's opened in Azure Files, and it's locked in Azure Files. If someone from another office tried to get at it, they'd be told that that file was locked. We'll see that in a moment. The second thing that happens is the Talon solution says, has this user or anybody at that location used that data before? If that file has been used in that location before, the bits are likely cached there and they're served locally. The file is open and locked in the cloud, but bits representing that file may be served locally out of cache. If they've not been used before, then the file will be streamed and the user will get it on a streaming basis. As the user edits and updates that file, we have customers doing files that are hundreds of megabytes, even 1 gig files. If that is a 100 meg design file that location A was doing and he makes 3 meg of changes, when he hits file save or exit or close, only those 3 meg need to be delted back to the authoritative copy that is opened in Azure Files. While he's doing his work, let's say that a user from user C navigates to that global namespace, because everybody's looking at it as if they had the same file server, and says file open, he's going to see what the same semantics that he would see as if they were in different floors of the same building. He's going to see a message that says that file is opened by user A. Would you like a read-only copy? Would you like to be notified when he's done? Exactly what would happen if you and one of your peers in the same building tried to access the same file in the same file server. Let's say he says notify me when he's done. User A will go back to him. He continues his work. He finishes his work. He closes his file. When he exits, any final changes are updated to the instance in Azure. The file is closed. The lock is released. Location C gets his message that says that file is now available for your use. So by combining Azure in the cloud, Azure Files in particular, and Talon to sit in front of it for the caching, the optimization, and the locking, companies like TSK can have multiple locations that instead of acting like multiple locations around the world, they're simply acting like different floors of the same building using the same file server in the basement. Only in this case, it's in the cloud. It's been working for over a year, very robustly for this customer. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mina Tenrinen-Demir for...
What else do you have available in Azure Files directly? So just to recap, we have covered Azure File Sync that we are announcing, that we announced yesterday. It's actually live. And Talon solution, which you can use to do global file locking. And what we will cover today is what other use cases that are available to you in Azure Files, and what else is coming new. If these use cases do not match your needs, what can you expect in the future to leverage Azure Files for? So how many of you use FTP servers today? See a raise of hands. It's like 20, 30% of the room. And we see this as a pretty common pattern when people use Azure Files. We see customers lifting and shifting on-premises FTP server solutions to the cloud using IaaS VMs. And as they do so, creating multiple instances of VMs and connecting them to a single storage so that when you hit a load balancer for the FTP server endpoint, you can be routed to on any of those VMs, and they all are backed by the shared storage, which is also highly available and durable. So you don't have to worry about replicating your data across multiple instances. Alternative of this one is that if availability is not that of a high priority for you, you can also do one VM to one disk, in which case you do not need Azure Files. However, most of the time you would want the high available version, since you want to be able to either load balance or access it anytime you need to. Some other use cases, examples that you might be able to relate to is that many of us have scripts lying around that does backup of any application we have in the form of files, logs, etc. And most of them point to a UNC path. What if you can change that UNC path and simply point it to Azure Files in the cloud? It's as simple as that. You don't need to change anything in your application. You don't need to move your application. You just change the path of your script to change your target endpoint. In both of these scenarios, I'm going to talk about one more scenario. You need to remember, if you're coming from on-prem, if your application is running on-prem, you want to be able to come from a client that provides secure connectivity, which means if you're connecting using SMB, you need SMB trio with encryption enabled in the client, and you would need port 445 outbound open for that. And another scenario we see is that customers lifting and shifting their applications to the cloud. But at some point in that application workflow, application produces some outputs, which you then might need to access back from on-prem. Some examples are customers hosting SAP in the cloud, and SAP produces reports. You want to print those reports back on-prem, and you have a printer that has SMB connectivity. So we see a lot of that as well. So what else is new? We have recently did a lot of investments in security, and I'm going to share one more investment that is coming in this space. We have released encryption of data at rest, which is simply a setting in your storage account. So to host Azure File shares, for those of you who may not be familiar with it, you first need to create a container called Azure Storage Account. And this is simply a setting you turn on the storage account, which we recently changed to be by default enabled. That makes your data in the cloud encrypted. And second, what we will enable in the future, which we have in public preview for blobs right now, is you will be able to provide your own encryption key to choose what key is used to encrypt. One other thing we contributed to security is SMB clients in Linux that supported SMB trio was not supporting encryption feature. So those of you who may be using Linux on-prem, we're not able to talk to Azure Files in the cloud because of this, because we blocked unsecure access. So we work with the Linux community, actually contribute to the Linux kernel to be able to support SMB trio encryption in Linux. Furthermore, we enabled more end-to-end capabilities for you. If you used Azure Storage Solutions before, we have a capability called import-export, in which you can ship HDDs to us with your data in it, and we import it into storage. And so we added support for that so that you can now import file storage directly, and export is coming. And we also recognize that many of you may be using a variety of clients which may not have the right SMB prerequisites. So we enabled scripts that might help you check for your prerequisites in your environment for successful mounting of file shares. And how are we doing so far? Excited? All right. So announcing today, actually we announced yesterday, is Azure File Sync that Klaus mentioned. More on the security team. So we added something called network hackles that we are announcing at Ignite. So if you know storage accounts are on public IP addresses. So if you needed to secure your storage accounts, we had a lot of customers ask, can I limit who can access my storage account? So network hackles is the way you will do it. So in Portal, you go to enable your network hackles, where I'm showing a screenshot of. And with the network hackles, you can change default access to deny, Then you can whitelist certain VNets or certain IP ranges to allow access to them. So beyond what you whitelisted, people will not be able to access your storage accounts. And this supports Azure Files as well. Then we added more capabilities that help you diagnose any issues you may have with end-to-end, or you want to simply observe how you're doing with the performance. Do you need to scale out further? Do you need to change any configuration to do so? So 2 things here. One, we are announcing Azure Monitor as part of Ignite, which is all up Azure investment. As storage team, we are taking part of it, which allows you to report on certain metrics. We enabled for file storage metrics at the minute level. So transactions are updated in the metrics minute by minute, so you can see it almost real time. And on top of it, up until today, you couldn't check your capacity or transaction metrics per service type. So for those of you who may know, a storage account is a container where you can place your files, blobs, disks, and tables together. So if you're using a mix of workloads in the same storage account, you couldn't identify which part of the transaction is coming from what to load balance, and maybe you need to separate them into different storage accounts. So now you can see the drop down here. You can see the different transactions. How am I doing with my ingress, egress? How many transactions are coming? What is my file share capacity? Moreover, so we're going to talk more on the roadmap, but some of the roadmap is coming really, really soon, so which is snapshots and backup. So snapshots is a capability where you can simply make an API call, and we enable the same thing from Portal, as well as PowerShell and scripts, and REST APIs on top of it, is that will take a snap of your file share in a data consistent way. So your namespace is consistent, and you have a timestamp that you can go to see the state of your file share at the time snapshot is taken. And we also integrated with Azure Backup, where you can automate this functionality to create policies on a schedule of your own choosing, to do these on a schedule in a recurring basis. And to celebrate all of this, we are doing a price reduction of 25%, dropping LRS prices from 8 cents per gigabyte to 6 cents per gigabyte. So let's do a little demo. OK. So I already created my storage account. So going back to what we have discussed, storage account is your container where you can store multiple storage services. And what we will see here is that I will show you the file shares I created. We will take a snapshot of the file shares. We will see different snapshots taken before, because I already configured backup towards those file shares. And we will also be able to see how you can create new backup policies. Then we will go to a VM where I have already mounted this file share, and we will see how one might accidentally delete a file and recover from that from a previous snapshot. So I have my storage account here, and let me go. All right, so this is my storage account, and I'm going to go to Files, where I have already created my file shares under. So you see, these are my shares, or I can create a new one. So if you're not familiar, this is how you will mount file shares. So you can browse to it, or you can connect to it. So the connect button is similar to that of VM connection, but it simply points you to a netuse command or sudo mount command, depending on your environment. And you go to your client, you just copy-paste this command on your client, and there you go, you mounted your file share. So let's go see the command for Linux as well. And next, I want to show you the snapshots. So we have a new snapshot menu now, and we will simply create a snapshot here. And here we go, it is already created. And we can go to View Snapshots. And they're all listed by timestamp. And as I mentioned, I also configured backup. So if I close this one. So here, I'm in my backup vault. So this is also another resource I created, similar to storage account. I created a backup vault. And if you are using IaaS VMs, you might have already used Azure Backup. And so our integration is adding Azure storage support to backup. So you can start backing up your files storages. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so my backup items, all my backup items are actually Azure storage right now. So you go to select Azure storage, and you can see what you have configured. So I'll add a new one. So here, this is the virtual machine UI that you may be familiar with already. Basically, we will in the same UI, we will simply choose Azure File Shares to backup. So I'm going to choose Azure File Share from the dropdown. And then we click Backup. This is my storage account that I want to back up. And in this UI, before I click, basically, it is showing me the file shares that I have not configured any backup policies against. So these are the ones that I can still have opportunity to backup. So I'm going to go select this file share. So I can now choose a backup policy. And we have a backup policy called demo. Or we can create a new one. So here I can choose the frequency or choose the retention policy and name it. But I will instead go and choose one of the existing ones. And it was as simple as clicking Enable Backup here, and it will be scheduled. So I want to cancel this out to save us some time, because we're going to look at existing backups, so that I want to be able to show something where we have the backup already and we will recover from. So in this UI, I can also see the status of my backups. So there is one that I had disabled before it took any backup at all. Let's go to a success one. So you can see it was created successfully. I can create a backup now. I can restore share, or I can recover by file. So what this means is that you can browse to a snapshot of a share. And you can either recover full share, or you can recover your selected files as you do that. And I have other functionalities to stop or delete if I don't need it anymore. So I'm in my VM where I already mounted my file shares. So this is the place we will see how we can integrate with VSS to recover your file shares from. So I have already mounted my file share. You can see on the Explorer, this is the path to my file share. And this is the path that shows where I mounted the folder to. And on the right-hand side, I already snapped to a snapshot version, and I will just show in a second how we got there. So here, Restore Previous Versions menu, for those of you who may have used it already. And you can see the previous snapshots that you can use from this menu. And you can open one, and it will point with a timestamp to that folder, so you can open them side by side and compare. Or you can restore. We will come back to that in a minute. So these are my cats, Jean-Luc and Riker. Any Star Trek fans? No? Yeah. Okay. So what we will do is we will accidentally delete one of the pictures of Jean-Luc and then get Jean-Luc back. So you can see on the real one, I'm deleting it. On the right-hand side, I still have the snapshot. And we will go to previous versions, and we will simply restore from there. Here we go. We have Jean-Luc back. So this is how you can use integrated functionality into Windows with Azure File Shares directly. And you can take them on demand, or you can configure backup to have continuous integration, to have recovered files available to you. So let's go back. So what we have seen in the demo is we have configured backup using Recovery Services Vault. And the Recovery Services Vault in the backend was using snapshots. You could recover from the backup UI as well, which gives you more capabilities in terms of browsing in the UI. Or you can also use previous versions integration in Windows, and especially if you're familiar with that, it allows you side-by-side comparison with the existing comparison tools of your choosing. Furthermore, this is all integrated with Azure File Sync. For your data integrity, what we ensure is that if you have a sync in progress, we make sure we time the sync and the backup with each other, so we can take data integrated backups. So a little bit more details on these. So you can have retention policies up to 120 days. And there is incremental price of configuring backup per storage account. And you can restore, as I mentioned, we did a restore of full share. Even though we deleted single file, we could have recovered a single file as well. And if you use snapshots directly, so snapshots has their own REST APIs. You have programmatic access. So if you have your own workflows that you want to integrate snapshot capability directly, you could do so. And the way we take snapshots is incremental. What I mean by that is that we take a snap of your file share at the time you take the snapshot. So we have the version of your file share in a consistent way at that timestamp. And any data you make change to after that, we only store the incremental. So you only pay for incremental data storage between your snapshots. And during preview that we're going to announce pretty soon, this snapshot incremental data usage will be free. And more on the roadmap. I can take a couple questions, I think, before we go on to roadmap. How are we doing with time? Go ahead.
The backups are snapshots that are stored in the same storage accounts.
Correct.
As the data.
Correct. So we have roadmap items to expand so that you can also create backup in a secondary account as well.
Would it not be better as an overall solution to back up to the Recovery Services Vault instead?
Yeah, so it will come as an incremental capability. So right now we are starting off to give this capability to every one of you because we have snapshots available, and we have gotten requests from customers who wanted to get snapshots in an automated way easier. So we are looking to expand on it with the backup vault as well.
Okay, because right now I couldn't use it.
Okay, that's good feedback.
It's going to be overly expensive. It's the single point of failure, the lack of retention, 120 days. That suits non-regulated businesses, but anyone who's regulated, 120 days is just not going to put it, unfortunately. And with File Sync, it looks like, based on everything I've read, you can't back up on-prem because you're going to end up sucking down all the data.
Yeah, so one thing we could do is that with the preview program, we work very closely with each of you to gather this feedback, and that's the reason we go with preview, so that we can try and address any of that feedback before we go GA. So I would love to connect with you further so we can discuss this more. Yeah? All right. Hi.
Question about network access. Is there a limit on the number of
So the question is there a limit to number of subnets you can define within network ACLs? So I don't know on top of my head, but I will get you the documentation. We'll be publishing it as part of the network ACLs.
Remote connectivity, is it all over the internet, or can it be express route, or VPN connectivity?
So the question was, how do we do remote connectivity, and do we need express route or VPN? So if you were to use Azure Files directly, you do not need ExpressRoute or VPN as long as you're coming from a client that has SMB encryption. For security reasons, we block communication from clients that do not come from a secure channel. Also, you would need your on-prem to open port 445 outbound access, not inbound, just outbound. And we actually published a documentation on how you can limit the IPs you can open the port to. Go ahead.
Two questions.
Yeah.
First, if you're using just SMB to connect, can you region lock that, or does that be another product?
The question is, can you region lock SMB access? I didn't understand what you mean by that. Do you mean in combination with network ACLs?
Yes, but I have a foreign unknown subnet as some arbitrary location.
Yeah, so with network ACLs, you can change the storage accounts default access to deny. So only whitelisted addresses will come and will be able to access. And it affects both SMB and REST the same way.
This is for everything with logs and
Correct. And for those of you who may not have heard, the question was whether this is available for everything in storage accounts. The answer is yes. Let's go ahead. Right. So the question is, do we have ability to use alternate ports because some ISPs block port 445? So I have two answers to that. So we do not have ability to use alternate ports because port 445 is inherent to SMB. However, we're looking to see how we can make it easier. And it becomes a little bit more simpler if you're a customer of ExpressRoute. Alternatively, if you're using Azure File Sync to sync your data to on-prem for on-prem access, Azure File Sync in the background talks to Azure Files over REST API, so you don't have that problem. Okay, go ahead.
Can you have some form of file screening to determine the kind of file you can back up or sync to the file storage?
The question is whether you can do file screening to determine the type of file reaching the backend. So we are actually working for some partners to be able to provide that. We don't have that directly today, but if you have an application that you already are using that has capability to scan a mounted file share, it should work against Azure Files. Okay, so we can, go ahead, one last question.
File sync agent, will that run on server core as well?
Do you want to take that class? The question is, the file sync agent, will that run on server core as well?
So at present the answer is no. That is something that we have on our roadmap, though, but not at present.
So I will go on the roadmap slide, and then I will take more questions at the end as well. We'll be here for more questions. So what else is coming? We will be adding in AD integration and ACLs. As Klaus mentioned, if you use Azure File Sync, Azure File Sync will retain your ACLs and synchronize them. So when you're accessing through sync access, you will be able to leverage your AD integration. Native Azure Files AD integration will also be coming. We are looking to integrate with Active Directory domain services so that if you're a user of Active Directory in the cloud, you can natively talk to Azure Files using the users in that Active Directory. Further, for those of you who may know, file shares are today at 5 terabyte. So beyond 5 terabyte, you need to create more shares. We are looking to expand this to 100 terabytes. And with that, we want to also retain the performance as if you had 20 shares. So we're going to be increasing file share throughput and IOPS to scale accordingly. We're going to GA Azure File Sync. And with that, we are also planning on integrating cross-region sync. What that means is that you can add more than one file share to your sync group so that you can sync across multiple geos and replicate your data. We have a question?
So what's the share limit today?
5 terabytes. Zone redundant storage. So Azure Storage today supports LRS, locally redundant storage, ZRS, zone redundant storage, GRS, geo-redundant storage, and array GRS, where geo-redundant storage is allowed read-only access as well. In LRS, your data has 3 synchronous copies. So when you make a write to your storage account, we don't acknowledge that that write is done until we created 3 copies of that. And it means your data is written to 3 separate disks, and we have durability. With ZRS, what we will be enabling, and this is also something we are announcing new in Ignite, is that your data will be replicated to multiple zones, and each zone will be in a different building or isolation such that power and firewalls will be present, and you will be protected more towards incidents. And this is also going to be synchronous. So when you write data to a ZRS account, we will acknowledge your write when all 3 copies on the 3 zones are done. And lastly, we will be adding data export capability. So similar to importing your data, you can ship your hard disk and export your data back. So, question?
Do you plan to add Unix support to the sync?
You want to take that? The question is whether we plan to add Linux or Unix support to the sync functionality.
We definitely discussed it. Probably wouldn't be in the near future. It all depends on how many customers ask for it to the public preview. So at this point, we're in the stage where as we get feature requests, we start to prioritize those feature requests. So I think you're the 3rd or 4th customer to ask. In our private preview, Windows Server 2012 R2 and 2016 is what we support today. So far, we have not booked 2008 R2 either, because we haven't gotten a lot of requests for it, so we're going to have to prioritize it.
So one point on that, for roadmap items and future discussions, we will stay here, and as well as you can always reach out to us. We will share an email address. We'll be happy to find out more if you have further roadmap requests, so we can take them into account as we plan more features. So I will take questions, and in the end, since some people are leaving, let me leave with that email address at least. And basically, we have found out Azure File Sync you can use to extend your on-premises data centers to the cloud. You can leverage Talon solution for global file locking, and you can use Azure Files in the backend for cloud access. With that, we have some additional talks. And these talks will be expansion on top of what we have shared with you today. And you can see our email address. You can stop by at the booth. We are doing 101s. So if you want to have a 101 meeting to discuss your use case, we can definitely do that. So now we open to questions.
Oh, and one last comment. Please, a reminder, if you can fill out a evaluation, that'd be great. Love to know how we can improve these for the future.
All right. Questions? Yeah.
I have a question today on the Azure File Sync. If we have an on-prem backup solution now, what will happen since some, I guess, stuffing happens? So does it back up the entire, or does it?
So the question is, if you have an existing backup solution today, how does that fit in with Azure File Sync?
Yeah.
Okay. If you have an existing backup solution today, you can continue to use it. I would say for the server that you're backing up, I would not turn on cloud tiering. Not for that server, because if you are backing up that server, you want to have a complete copy of the data in your backup, right? So if you're syncing that data set to multiple servers, I would at least leave one server without cloud tiering turned on if you want to do an on-site backup of the complete file copy.
What are the minimum OS requirements for the clients as well as for the server component itself?
For Azure Files or Azure File Sync or? For Azure File Sync, we currently work on 2012 R2 and 2016. The clients that can access those servers haven't changed at all. Whatever a Windows Server 2012 R2 or 2016 supports continues to be supported. It's completely separate.
We have the gentleman.
When the ceiling gets raised on the file shares, is it going to happen automatically to existing file shares, or do I need to build a new file share?
So the question is, when the file share targets increase, will that happen automatically? The answer is yes. So basically, we will retain your quota if you customize a lower ceiling. If you have not customized, we will let you go beyond up to 100 terabytes. Yeah, no problem. I think we had this.
How well does this support Mac SMB clients?
The question is, how well is the support of Mac SMB clients? We actually work very closely with the developers who added that support. So if you actually see any issues, let us know. We can work and address that. It should be working seamlessly.
If I could also ask a follow-up question.
Yeah.
Alternative data streams, are they going to be
The question is whether alternate data streams are supported. It is not supported today. It's in our backlog. The prioritization depends on what you guys want us to support. So we actually have a user voice channel that you can vote on these asks because we take those into account as we plan new features. Sorry, I couldn't hear.
Do you have any roadmap items around compliance and legal hold with Azure Files?
So the question is whether we have roadmap items addressing compliance and legal requirements. Could you elaborate more on that? What type of compliance you were looking for?
Do you mean legal hold or discovery on files stored in Azure Files?
So we have our compliance white paper that explains how much the data in Azure storage retained and which compliance requirements we support. Azure Files supports the same ones as the rest of the storage. So we can definitely share that with you if you give us your contact, and we can see if what you're looking for is included there. If not, we can follow up. Yeah. Go ahead.
Any character length limits for
Any character limits for the file path. So we do have limits. We publicly publish them, but we haven't heard any complaints from the customers on those limits so far. So they are pretty extensive. But on the file sync also, we have some feedback as well. I don't know if you want to share anything.
Yeah, so on Azure File Sync, we have about the same file path limits, but at this point in time, there are a subset of characters that we do not support. We've enabled telemetry so we can spot them, and we can add support for them as we go. In our private preview, that didn't seem to cause a problem for the customers that onboarded, so it's something we're watching for. But there could be a subset of files that don't initially sync. But they should definitely be the exception at this point.
when those are hit, does it just skip that file and move on to
Yep, that's correct. It skips that file, moves on to the next, and it also generates an event error on that server. And then, no, go ahead.
Does it also work for files that are too large? Does it just skip the too large one and then just move on?
That's correct. And then there's also an error that's logged there. So you can know what's going on, and then also we, via our telemetry and monitoring channel, can also be aware of that.
Go ahead. Sorry, I couldn't hear. Could you repeat? So in the public preview, we are adding, we are supporting single file share. Correct?
I think the question was, how many sync groups can you add to a specific file server? Is that right? Yeah.
Okay.
It's on the range of 10. It's somewhere between 10 and 20 from what I remember. Again, we published those limits. I just didn't memorize them all. And we've also been changing them rapidly over the last few months. But I think you can get at least 10 sync groups per server. Yeah. And that's a good question because I didn't really mention that the sync group is really a representation of a registered server and a specific path on that registered server. So you can have multiple sync groups. So you could have dcolon data go to one sync group, and you could have dcolon users go to another. I mean, it's pretty flexible, so you can carve it up however you want, which is another reason why we haven't done pinning yet, because if you have dcolon data / no sync, you just don't have that in a sync group, and then you have dcolon data / users that is in a sync group and everything else.
So we had a question there.
files, will the
So the question is whether files dedupe is a supported scenario. You want to take that?
Not quite yet. So the good news is that the team that we're in actually owns Windows Server dedupe.
Yeah.
So the fact that it doesn't work is painful for us. So we do plan on actually adding support for that. Yeah. Yes, and long term, this is not part of an official roadmap, but long term, we are investigating using dedupe technologies to reduce even further LAN transmission costs, as well as at-rest storage costs.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Will global file locking be coming to the service, or will they always have to go to a partner?
That's something that's on our roadmap. I mean, it is something we would like to enable at some point in the future. I mean, we're working closely with Talon because they're a great partner, and they'll continue to provide, additional functionality that we can't. We think that at some point in the future we will, but we're not exactly sure of the timing. So if you do have a scenario that has heavy global file locking needs for collaboration, definitely use Talon software.
And you know what? You can start with us, and sometime in X number of years in the future, if you want to migrate, the data is still in your Azure File Share standard SMB data, so you don't lose it.
Correct.
Just one quick follow-up. With Azure File Sync, I've got all these file servers all over the place, and I've got tons of data up in the cloud. Is there like some data egress kind of stuff that I should be worried about for charges for Azure?
We do have a data egress charge, but we also will be supporting the data box appliance that was also announced. So there's going to be more efficient ways to get your data out as well as in.
Can I add one thing on that cost?
Yeah.
We get asked that question all the time. Customers ask us all the time, if I consolidate 100 file servers into Azure File Share, aren't I looking at billions of dollars of egress charges as my users open files? And we've been consolidating for 5 years into one place, and in the cloud with Azure, more than a year. So we've got some good experience. The customer that I talked about today, TSK, they have less than 0.5% of their total footprint that is egressed on a monthly basis. If you do the math on that, it says if you have a 5 terabyte share and you get 5 gig of egress for free, your egress is essentially covered if you're average. And we've touched bases on a few of these different Azure customers, and that's what happens when you're using caching. We, on average, are finding greater than 80% locality of reference, meaning a given location uses kind of the same stuff over and over again. They create a file and they work it, and they work it, and they work it. So every time they open it, every day is not an egress charge. And right now, we're seeing egress charges significantly under 1% of the file share footprint. And the charges that our customers that have seen charges, they're in the tens of dollars or hundreds of dollars on a monthly basis. They're not even in the thousands of rounding it. So we like that because that is one of the biggest fear factors that we've seen from customers about consolidating into the cloud for user shares. And this is different than application shares. This is user shares. Right now, we're getting really, really encouragingly small numbers on egress charges if they even show up.
We had a question there.
The file syncing, is it TCP or UDP?
The question is whether the file syncing is TCP or UDP.
I'll have to get back to you on that. I'm pretty sure it's TCP, but it's REST-based. So we're actually not using like the SMB protocol to do the file syncing at all. But I'm pretty sure it's TCP.
Okay, we're just high-latency connections.
And we've done some, it's interesting, part of our team has done some pretty good research in WAN acceleration, especially over lossy or highly latent networks. And there's been some interesting research that shows you can actually get almost the same performance with TCP that you do with UDP now, which was a surprise to me when I joined the team because I came from the remote desktop world where we'd spent a lot of time moving to UDP. So it turns out it's not quite as clear-cut. I used to have the exact same belief. Go to UDP because on a lossy, highly latent network, it's going to have much better performance. So we're doing some really interesting work there to actually make that even more performant over TCP.
Also, I'll tell you, we have customers that are having locations around the world on satellite, on ships in the desert that are in significant excess of 350, 450 milliseconds of latency, and sometimes measured up in seconds at certain times a day. So it's possible if you're doing that caching.
Cool.
Your Azure File Sync demo, you have content in the Azure File Share, you initiate sync the other way around, content starting out in the on-premise as well?
Completely. The question was, can you do the sync from the server standpoint versus the Azure file share? Completely. It's a bidirectional sync protocol. Yeah. Thank you.
I think we're wrapping up. We will stay around.
You got one, yeah.
Oh, let's follow up.
Yeah, I was just bringing it back.
Yes, we can. We will be out there in a minute. We can talk. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Bye.